George Strait cries on stage. What he revealed moved everyone to tears. The arena lights dimmed, and 20,000 voices erupted into a deafening roar that shook the American Airlines Center in Dallas to its very foundation. Emma Sullivan felt her heart racing as she gripped her 8-year-old son Tyler's hand, watching his eyes widen with pure wonder as the stage lights burst to life. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for, the dream that had kept them both going through the darkest days of the past year. "Mom, he's really here," Tyler whispered, his voice barely audible over the crowd's thunderous applause. His small frame trembled with excitement, and Emma couldn't help but smile despite the knot of worry that had taken permanent residence in her stomach ever since the doctors had given them the latest prognosis. George Strait emerged from the shadows, his iconic black Stetson perfectly positioned, his weathered face breaking into that familiar, humble smile that had graced country music for over 4 decades. At 72, he moved with the same quiet confidence that had earned him the title King of Country Music. The crowd's roar intensified as he approached the microphone, his hand raised in a modest wave. Emma watched her son's face illuminate with joy so pure it made her chest ache. Tyler had been counting down the days to this concert for 3 months, ever since she'd surprised him with the tickets. She'd worked double shifts at the diner and taken on extra cleaning jobs on weekends, saving every penny to afford seats. Close enough for Tyler to see his hero clearly. Section B, row 30, not exactly front row, but close enough to make out every detail of George's performance. Before we continue with this incredible story, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you watching. If you're enjoying this emotional journey, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that notification bell. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us where you're watching from, and if you've ever experienced a moment where music changed everything. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you more stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul. The first notes of Check Yes or No filled the arena, and Tyler began singing along, word for word. Emma marveled at how her little boy, who struggled to remember his multiplication tables, could recall every lyric to every George Strait song ever recorded. Music had been Tyler's escape, his comfort during the long hospital stays and painful procedures. When the nurses would insert yet another IV, Tyler would close his eyes and hum Amarillo by Morning. When the pain became unbearable after his surgeries, Emma would play George's greatest hits on repeat until her son finally drifted off to sleep. "You doing okay, baby?" Emma leaned down to check on Tyler, her maternal instincts never fully at rest. The doctors had warned her about overstimulation, about keeping him calm, about avoiding situations that might spike his heart rate. But how could she deny him this? How could she look into those bright blue eyes that had seen too much pain for someone so young, and tell him he couldn't see his hero perform one last time? Tyler nodded enthusiastically, his attention never leaving the stage. "I'm perfect, Mom. This is the best day ever." The concert progressed beautifully, each song building upon the last, creating a tapestry of memories and emotions. George's voice, rich and smooth as aged whiskey, filled every corner of the arena. He performed the classics, All My Exes live. In Texas, The Chair, oceanfront property, each one met with enthusiastic singing from the crowd. Emma found herself getting lost in the music too, temporarily forgetting the weight of their circumstances. It was during I Cross My Heart that Emma first noticed something was wrong. Tyler's grip on her hand had tightened considerably, and when she glanced down, she saw that his breathing had become labored. His face, which had been flushed with excitement just moments before, was now taking on a pale, almost grayish hue. Tyler, honey, talk to me," Emma said, trying to keep her voice calm despite the panic rising in her throat. She knelt beside him, her hands moving to his face, feeling the clamminess of his skin. "Mom, I can't." Tyler's words came out in short gasps, his small chest heaving with the effort to breathe. His hand moved to his chest, clutching at his shirt, and Emma knew. She knew with the terrible certainty that only a mother who has watched her child suffer can possess, that this was not just fatigue or overexcitement. "Help! Somebody help! Us!" Emma's scream cut through the music, but in a crowd of 20,000, her voice was just another sound in the ocean of noise. The people around them were still swaying to the music, oblivious to the drama unfolding in row 30. Tyler's legs gave out, and Emma caught him as he collapsed, cradling him in her arms. His lips were turning blue now, and his eyes, those beautiful eyes that looked so much like his late father's, were rolling back. "No, no, no, baby, stay with me. Stay with Mom." A woman in the row behind them noticed the commotion first. "Oh my God, is he okay?" she asked, then immediately began shouting for help, adding her voice to Emma's desperate pleas. Within seconds, a small crowd had formed around them. Someone was calling 911. Another person was trying to give them space. Emma held Tyler close, feeling his small body convulsing slightly, his breathing becoming more and more shallow. "Where are the medics? Where's security?" someone shouted. As if summoned by the urgency in the crowd's voice, 2 security guards pushed through the gathering. One of them, a burly man with graying hair and kind eyes, immediately dropped to his knees beside Emma and Tyler. "Ma'am, I'm James. I'm a former paramedic," he said, his voice calm and authoritative. "What's his condition?" He has a congenital heart defect," Emma managed to say through her tears. "He's had 3 surgeries this year. The doctors said, oh God, they said to avoid stress, but he wanted to come so badly, and I thought, it's okay, ma'am." "You did nothing wrong," James said, as he quickly assessed Tyler's condition. His experienced hands checked the boy's pulse, his breathing, his responsiveness. What he found clearly alarmed him, though he kept his expression neutral. "Mike," he called to his partner, "we need the emergency medical team here now, and clear a path for them." Mike, the younger security guard, hesitated for just a moment, looking between the medical emergency and the stage where George Strait was still performing, unaware of the drama unfolding in the audience. Then, making a decision that would change the course of the evening, Mike turned and sprinted not toward the medical station, but toward the backstage area. Emma barely noticed his departure. Her entire world had shrunk to the small circle where she held her son, where James was now, performing chest compressions with practiced efficiency. "Come on, Tyler," she whispered, her tears falling onto his pale face. "Come on, baby, don't leave me. You're all I have. You're everything." The crowd around them had grown larger now, forming a protective circle, keeping curious onlookers at bay while also trying to flag down additional help. Someone had produced a jacket to put under Tyler's head. Another person was fanning him with a program. The humanity in that moment, strangers coming together to help a child in crisis, was both beautiful and heartbreaking. On stage, George Strait had just finished "I Cross My Heart" and was taking a sip of water, preparing to launch into "Amarillo by Morning." He noticed some commotion in the crowd, but couldn't make out what was happening from his vantage point. After decades of performing, he'd seen all manner of disruptions: fights, marriage proposals, over-enthusiastic fans trying to rush the stage. He'd learned to let security handle such matters while he kept the show moving. But then his stage manager, Robert, appeared at the side of the stage, gesturing urgently. This was unusual. Robert had been with him for 15 years and knew better than to interrupt a performance unless it was absolutely necessary. George made his way over, still strumming his guitar to keep the music going. "What is it, Rob?" he asked, leaning in close. Robert's face was grave. "George, we've got a situation. There's a young boy in the audience, 8 years old, having what looks like a serious cardiac event. Security says it doesn't look good. The kid, George, they're saying he's a huge fan, might be his last show." The words hit George like a physical blow. His fingers stilled on the guitar strings. And for a moment, just a moment, the consummate professional who had never missed a note in 40 years of performing simply stopped. The band, sensing something was wrong, looked to their leader for guidance. The crowd, too, began to notice that something was off. The music had stopped, and George Strait, the man who performed through flu, through personal tragedy, through everything life had thrown at him, was standing completely still, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. In the audience, Emma was oblivious to what was happening on stage. The paramedics had finally arrived, pushing through the crowd with their equipment. They took over from James, their movements swift and professional, but Emma could see it in their eyes, that look medical professionals get when they're deeply concerned, but trying not to show it. "We need to move him now," one of the paramedics said. "Ma'am, are you his mother? You can come with us." Emma nodded, unable to speak. As they lifted Tyler onto a stretcher, she caught a glimpse of his face, so still, so pale. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not now, not during what was supposed to be the happiest night of his young life. The crowd parted to let them through, and Emma heard murmurs of sympathy, whispered prayers, quiet offers of help. Someone pressed a business card into her hand. "I'm a cardiac specialist at Presbyterian. Call me if you need anything." And someone else draped a jacket over her shoulders, though she hadn't realized she was shaking. As they made their way toward the exit, something made Emma look back at the stage. What she saw stopped her in her tracks. George Strait was no longer at his microphone. He was standing at the very edge of the stage, his hat in his hand, watching their small procession with an expression of such profound sadness that it took her breath away. Their eyes met across the vast space, the desperate mother and the country music legend, and in that moment, Emma saw something she would never forget. She saw recognition, understanding, and a pain that mirrored her own. She didn't know why, didn't understand what could cause such a reaction in a man who had presumably seen every kind of human drama play out in his audiences over the years. But George Strait understood all too well. As he watched the paramedics carry the small boy away, his mind flew back to another night, another emergency, another child whose life hung in the balance. His Jennifer, his baby girl, 13 years old when a car accident stole her away, leaving a hole in his heart that had never fully healed. He turned back to his band, to Robert, to the 20,000 fans waiting for him to continue. But for the first time in his legendary career, George Strait found himself unable to simply carry on with the show. The boy's pale face, the mother's desperate eyes, the echo of his own loss, it was all too much. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying across the arena despite the absence of music, "I need to ask for your patience and your prayers tonight." The arena fell into an unprecedented silence. 20,000 people, who moments before had been singing and swaying, now stood frozen, watching their hero struggle with emotions they'd never seen him display publicly. George Strait's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the microphone, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a rawness that cut through the air like a blade. "There's a young boy being taken to the hospital right now," George continued, his eyes still fixed on the exit where Emma and Tyler had disappeared. "An 8-year-old fan who came here tonight despite facing serious health challenges, and I've just been informed that he's fighting for his life." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Parents instinctively pulled their own children closer, and the atmosphere shifted from one of celebration to one of shared concern. This wasn't part of the show. This was real, raw, and happening right before their eyes. Backstage, Mike, the security guard who had made the split-second decision to inform the stage manager, watched nervously. He'd broken protocol, potentially, risked his job, but something about seeing that mother's desperation had compelled him to act. Now, watching George Strait, the consummate professional, struggle to maintain his composure, Mike wondered if he'd done the right thing. "I know, this isn't what any of us expected tonight," George said, placing his hat back on his head with slightly unsteady hands. "But sometimes life reminds us that there are things more important than staying on schedule, more important than hitting every note perfectly or following the set list." The band members exchanged glances, uncertain of what their leader was planning. In all their years of touring together, they'd never seen him like this. George was known for his steady demeanor, his ability to separate his personal life from his performances. But something about this situation had clearly struck a deep chord. "I'd like to share something with y'all," George said, moving to the center of the stage. The spotlight followed him, casting long shadows that seemed to emphasize the weight of the moment. "Something I don't talk about often, though some of you may know the story." He paused, collecting himself, and when he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. 37 years ago, I lost my daughter Jennifer in a car accident. She was just 13 years old, loved horses, loved music, loved life, with a passion that lit up every room she entered. Losing her, well, it nearly broke me, nearly made me walk away from all of this. The arena remained silent, save for the occasional sniffle from audience members who were being touched by this unexpected vulnerability from their hero. Many had heard about the tragedy, but hearing George speak about it so openly was unprecedented. "The only thing that got me through those dark days was music and the love of folks like y'all," he continued. "But I'll tell you what haunts me to this day. It's the things I didn't say, the moments I missed because I was too busy, too focused on the next show, the next album. Tonight, that little boy and his mama reminded me that every moment we have is precious." Robert, the stage manager, appeared at the edge of the stage again, his phone pressed to his ear. He gestured to George, who walked over, still visible to the audience. "George," Robert said quietly, "I've got an update. The paramedics have the boy stabilized for now, but they're rushing him to Presbyterian. It's touch and go." George nodded, processing this information. Then, to everyone's amazement, he began unbuckling his guitar strap. "What are you doing?" Robert asked, alarmed. "Something I should have done the moment I heard about that boy," George replied. He turned back to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do something I've never done in 43 years of performing. I'm going to step off this stage for a bit. But before I go, I want to ask each and every one of you to do something for me." The crowd leaned in, hanging on his every word. "I want you to think about someone you love, someone who means the world to you. And I want you to make a promise, right here, right now, that you'll tell them how much they mean to you, that you won't wait for tomorrow, won't assume there'll be another chance. Because sometimes," his voice cracked, "sometimes there isn't." He set his guitar carefully on its stand and looked out at the sea of faces. "My band is going to play for you while I'm gone, and when I come back, if y'all will have me, we'll finish this show. But right now, there's somewhere else I need to be." With that, George Strait did something that would become legendary. In country music history, he walked off the stage in the middle of a sold-out concert, leaving 20,000 stunned fans and an equally shocked band behind. The journey from the American Airlines Center to Presbyterian Hospital normally took 15 minutes. George made it in 10, his longtime driver Carl navigating the Dallas streets with practiced efficiency while George sat in the back, lost in memories and prayers. "You sure about this, boss?" Carl asked, glancing in the rearview mirror at the man he'd driven for 2 decades. Never been more sure of anything, Carl, George replied. I've sung to millions, won every award there is to win, but if I can't take a moment to be there for one sick child and his mama, then what's it all worth? At the hospital, Emma sat in the harsh fluorescent light of the waiting room. Her world reduced to the rhythmic beeping of machines and the antiseptic smell that had become all too familiar over the past year. Tyler had been rushed into emergency surgery, and all she could do was wait and pray. She'd called her sister in Austin, who was driving up as fast as she could. She'd called Tyler's doctors, who were consulting with the emergency team. But mostly, she just sat there, replaying every decision that had led to this moment. Should she have said no to the concert? Had she been selfish, wanting to give Tyler this experience despite the risks? Miss Sullivan, Emma looked up to see a doctor approaching, still in surgical scrubs. Her heart stopped. This was it, the moment that would define the rest of her life. Tyler is stable for now, the doctor said, and Emma released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. We've managed to address the immediate crisis, but he's not out of the woods yet. The next 24 hours will be critical. Can I see him? Soon. He's being moved to the pediatric ICU. Miss Sullivan, I need to be honest with you. Tyler's condition has deteriorated significantly since his last surgery. His heart is working harder than it should have to, and this episode tonight, it's taken a toll. Emma nodded, unable to speak. She knew what he wasn't saying, that they were running out of options, running out of time. There's something else, the doctor continued, looking puzzled. We've had some unusual calls about Tyler's case. Several cardiac specialists from around the country have reached out, offering to consult. And there's someone here who's been quite insistent about seeing you. Security wasn't going to let him up, but given who he is. Before Emma could ask what he meant, she heard footsteps in the corridor. Slow, measured steps, accompanied by the soft jingle of spurs. She looked up, and her breath caught in her throat. George Strait stood in the doorway of the waiting room, his iconic black hat in his hands, his face etched with concern. He looked smaller somehow, more human without the stage lights and the distance between performer and audience. Miss Sullivan? He asked gently. I'm George. I hope you don't mind, but I had to come. Emma stared at him, unable to process what she was seeing. You left your concert? Yes, ma'am, I did. He moved closer, his movements careful, respectful of her space. First time I've ever done that, but when I heard about your boy, about what happened, I couldn't just keep singing. I hope you can understand. Tears flowed freely down Emma's face. Tyler, he loves you so much. Your music got him through. Every surgery, every treatment, when the pain was too much, when he wanted to give up, I'd play your songs and he'd find the strength to keep fighting. George's own eyes glistened. What's his favorite song? Amarillo by Morning, Emma replied, without hesitation. He says it makes him think of cowboys riding into the sunrise, of new beginnings and hope. He must have listened to it 1,000 times. George nodded slowly, processing this information. Miss Sullivan, Emma, if I may, would it be possible for me to see Tyler when he's able? I'd like to. Well, I'd like to sing for him if you think it might help. Emma's composure finally broke completely. This man, this legend, had walked away from thousands of fans to be here for her son. He would. Oh, God, he would love that. But your concert, all those people, they'll understand, George said firmly. And if they don't, well, that's on me to make right. But this, being here, this is where I need to be right now. They sat together in that sterile waiting room, the country music superstar and the single mother, bound together by a child's crisis and the universal language of parental love and loss. George shared stories about Jennifer, about the pain of loss and the long journey toward healing. Emma talked about Tyler's father, killed in Afghanistan when Tyler was just 2, and how music had become their lifeline. "He's strong, your boy," George said. "To fight this hard, to keep that spirit despite everything he's been through, that comes from somewhere. That comes from you." An hour passed, then 2. Outside, social media exploded with videos and updates from the concert. George's band had indeed continued playing, with various band members taking turns at the microphone, explaining the situation to the increasingly supportive crowd. The prayers for Tyler began trending within minutes, and fans at the arena organized an impromptu vigil, 20,000 phone lights held high in solidarity. Finally, a nurse appeared. "Miss Sullivan, Tyler is awake and asking for you. You can see him now, but please keep it brief. He needs rest." Emma stood on shaking legs, then turned to George. Would you come with me? I know it's a lot to ask, but if he sees you there when he wakes up properly." George was already on his feet. "It would be my honor." The pediatric ICU was a world of controlled chaos. Machines beeping, nurses moving efficiently between beds, and somehow, through it all, an atmosphere of hope. Tyler's bed was in a corner room, surrounded by more equipment than seemed possible for such a small body. But he was awake, pale, weak but awake, his blue eyes searching until they found his mother. "Mom!" His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here, baby, I'm right here." Emma rushed to his side, careful of the various lines and monitors as she took his hand. Did I miss the concert?" Emma's heart broke all over again. "Oh, sweetheart. Not all of it, partner." Tyler's eyes widened impossibly as George Strait stepped into view. For a moment, the heart monitor spiked, causing a nurse to look over in concern, but Tyler's expression of pure joy quickly reassured everyone. You're really here," Tyler breathed. "I really am," George confirmed, moving closer to the bed. "Heard you weren't feeling too good. Thought I'd come check on my biggest fan. But your concert?" "Concerts come and go, Tyler, but getting to meet a brave young cowboy like you, that's something special." Tyler tried to sit up, but Emma gently kept him down. "I'm sorry I ruined your show, Mr. Strait." George's expression softened even further. "You didn't ruin anything, son. If anything, you reminded me and everyone in that arena about what really matters. Now, I heard through the grapevine that you're partial to Amarillo by morning. Think you might like to hear a little of it?" Tyler nodded eagerly, and George pulled up a chair beside the bed. Without a guitar, without a microphone, without any of the trappings of superstardom, George Strait began to sing. His voice, soft and intimate in the small space, carried all the emotion of the evening, all the weight of a father who had lost a child, singing to a child fighting to live.